You ever get tired? The culture war stuff. And I don't mean tired of fighting it. I hope you're not tired of fighting it. But do you ever look around and get a little bit overwhelmed? We have Tranny Bud Light out there. So that's the biggest beer company, Anheuser-Busch, gone. And I'm glad we have big names now openly rejecting this stuff. Travis Tritt, Kid Rock announcing they oppose it. But Amazon has tranny commercials. Listen to this list of companies out there. Listen to this. It's crazy. Instacart, Crest Toothpaste, Tampax, Jack Daniels, Ulta, Calvin Klein, Hershey's, Build-A-Bear, Country Music Television, Apple, Google, KitchenAid, Disney, the NHL, Netflix, M&M's, Cartoon Network, Twitch, Freedom, NASCAR, and Nickelodeon. Oh, that's a short list. That's a short list. I could go on and on and on. And so we look around because we want to be better, you want to be better, and I want to be better about putting our money where our morals are. And we should. We should endeavor to be better every single day at that. Not perfect. Don't be too hard on yourself, but we want to be better. And as we try to, all right, I'm not going to shop here. I'm not going to buy this. I'm not going to watch this. I'm canceling Disney Plus. As we do these things, I want you to understand these are small, necessary steps. You are doing good things. But you don't feel it all the time, right? When the day I canceled Disney Plus. Of course, I had to explain to my sons why they couldn't go watch Captain America movies anymore whenever they wanted. And I explained it to them and they got it. But still, when I hit cancel there on the TV remote, you know what didn't happen? I didn't hear anybody cheering for me. Go, Jesse, you're the best. I didn't have anybody saying, that's good work, Patriot. Way to save your country. Nobody did that. You have to do the things that don't get you any fanfare. So allow me to give you this. We have a lot of these things we need to do, and we need to keep doing them. But we need to do more than abstain spending in these companies, with these companies. We must now, on the right, begin to build our own. We have to build our own completely separate institutions of every kind. That's not a wonderful place to be as a nation, obviously. I don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. But that is where we are. So while we abstain from spending here, doing this, doing that, let us also realize we must build. Because we are not a destructive movement. We are a constructive movement. We build things here. We must build our own and support others who are building our own. We have to have an anti-communist community. We must be a community, loving each other, supporting each other. Small businesses. Shop with small businesses whenever possible. You know the communists hate small businesses, right? They've declared war on small businesses in America, attacked them relentlessly, especially during COVID. Let's all shop small as much as we can. Obviously, there are going to be limits. As much as we can, let's shop local, small, people who share our values. Sound good? All right. Let's also practice with our daggone weapons. We need to practice. You need to practice. I need to practice. And I can point at the TV screen and say you need to practice because it doesn't matter who you are, whether you've never held a weapon or whether you are a seasoned professional. Shooting skills are perishable skills. They don't just magically stay with you. We all need to get better, faster, deadlier every day. But how do you do that? Who has the time? Who has the money? Ammo's expensive. Range fees are expensive. Last time I took the wife and kids to the range cost me over $100 by the time I was said and done. Mantis X. Dry fire practice in the comfort of your home. They'll send it right to your house. It's what the Green Berets use. Go to mantisx.com. They'll put you through drills. You will find yourself having fun, maybe even fun with your family while you all get faster and deadlier. mantisx.com, all right? We'll be back.
Get planes coming in and getting them loaded, have medical screening, have security vetting, have diplomatic presence on the ground to make sure that we're putting the right people on planes, but also defend that airport from external threats. That's pretty remarkable. And so for all this talk of chaos, I just didn't see it, not from my perch.
But in hindsight, in reading this, Does the president have any regrets about how this withdrawal was carried out?
The president's very proud of the manner in which the men and women of the military, the Foreign Service, the intelligence community, I went on and on and on, conducted this withdrawal. And he inherited a deal struck between the previous administration and the Taliban that called for the complete removal of all U.S. troops by May of 2021, or else the Taliban, which had stopped its attacks while the deal was in place, would go back to war against the United States.
There was a time in this country, really in every country, where failures, especially military failures, are met with harsh rebukes, resignations, firings, sometimes even worse throughout history. Now, they get up there and they declare that it was a rousing success. Oh, and it was also the other guy's fault. I cannot believe what's happened. Joining me now, Colonel Grant Newsham, former reserve head of intelligence for Marine Forces Pacific and author of the book, which we're going to get to in a moment, When China Attacks. Colonel, Semper Fi, I cannot, look, I'm not even old. I was just a 4-year dumb grunt Marine. And even when I was in, there was always accountability. If you had a bad patrol, there was accountability. Now the entire nation can embarrass itself in front of the world. No one gets fired.
Yeah, that's you said it. It leaves you almost speechless. As you said, who's to blame for what happened in Afghanistan? Apparently it was leprechauns who did it. It would be nice just to have somebody say, look, yeah, we screwed up. We made some mistakes, but we're going to learn from it. And I have not seen anybody take any responsibility for what has happened. And now you have this fellow on TV claiming it was actually a great success. Well, if he thinks it was, why doesn't he go to Camp Pendleton and maybe address the 1st Marine Division, or go to the Veterans Hospital where the people who lost limbs in this abomination, where there are? Maybe why doesn't he go there and tell them what a great success it was? He won't. But this is something that I think that it's nauseating for most people. Just this complete lack of accountability for what has happened. If a Lance Corporal had done something, even remotely like this, or we know what Lance Corporals do, they would be absolutely hammered. In our case, it's upward promotions and end of tour awards. This is bad. We used to laugh about Saddam Hussein's spokesman, so-called Baghdad Bob, who said, nothing to see here. Well, there's American tanks, just outside the palace. We used to laugh about them, and we've kind of become like that. You don't say that with any sort of satisfaction. But I suppose at our ruling class level, they have opportunity to excel, is how one might charitably put it.
Gosh, that's a really great way to put it, and man, does that hit home. All right, I argue that was part of what has led this aggressive behavior by China. Not that China wasn't aggressive before, but they see things like this. They see weakness, stupidity, no accountability. Surely the Chinese look at that stuff and they start licking their chops for other opportunities that may be presented to them.
Well, that's what they do. There's that kind of a regime. I think Matt Pottinger, formerly with the National Security Council, described it as a shark that's going around, just swims around looking for something to eat. And if it comes across steel, or say a shark cage, it kind of goes away, but it's always looking for something to eat. And they do make this equation, or this calculation, as to how likely are the Americans in particular to do something to us. And they'll look at an administration, and they'll look at whether it's confused, if it's preoccupied elsewhere, if it doesn't look like it has backbone. And that all goes into their calculation when deciding what to do and where to make a move. And they like what they saw in Afghanistan. And I'm not so sure who it is in this administration that actually scares them. And as I said, I don't say that with any sort of pleasure. But they will look at it and say, well, who are we afraid of? In the last administration, they could tell you who it was. It was Mike Pompeo, Pottinger, Miles Yu, Dave Stilwell, Peter Navarro. And they wanted those people gone. Well, they got their wish. And I think they're probably happier with what they have now.
Okay, which brings us to Taiwan. They've been doing all these air drills. They've been building amphibious vehicles. They are very clearly prepping to go in, right? You're the intelligence colonel. I'm an idiot corporal. What are they doing?
Well, they've set up a military that they think could have a reasonable chance of success if it attacks Taiwan. The analysts will differ on this. Some say well, they're not quite there yet, or it's too hard to do amphibious operations. These kind of assaults, they're too complex. And unspoken is, well, the Chinese just aren't smart enough to figure these out. Well, the Chinese are as smart as us, and in some ways they're even smarter, so I wouldn't underestimate them. But I think the People's Liberation Army has set itself up, developed capabilities that would make its leadership, or what really matters is make Xi Jinping think that if they use force against Taiwan, they just might have a chance of success, particularly if you combine that with a threat to the United States along the lines of, this is a domestic matter, you steer clear, or it's nuclear war. Depending on who's in the White House, you just might get the Americans to back off. But I would note that the Chinese would rather get Taiwan without fighting. And the Taiwanese presidential election that's coming up in January 2024 is very important. If really a pro-China candidate wins, China just might back off and expect him to deliver Taiwan, however unwillingly for most of the citizens. But if the candidate from the party that wants nothing to do with Chinese enslavement wins, then I think the gloves are off. And I would say that an armed attack on Taiwan is likely. So I would pay a lot of attention to early 2024. But in my opinion, the PLA has the capability to make life pretty darn miserable for Taiwan if they decide to have a go against them.
Colonel, I'm sure a bunch of people out there are a little surprised to hear you say China would have a chance at success. They look at China as this big, angry communist bear, really the new Soviet Union in the world, and they look at this wee little island of Formosa, or Taiwan as we now call it, and they think, wow, that's got to be no contest. Should be 30 seconds and it would be over. Why do you say reasonable chance of success instead of an absolute rout?
Oh, I don't think there's ever been a war that turned out exactly like people thought it would, for one thing. But you can make Taiwan a pretty darn tough nut to crack. If China goes after Taiwan, say it loses all of its navy in a couple afternoons, that's some problems. But a lot does depend on if the Americans get involved. If the Americans do, they can cause the Chinese military no end of trouble. But also consider that a fight for Taiwan is unlikely to be a narrowly confined thing, just to the area around Taiwan, with rules and limits, etc. But if you expand the battlefield, China has suddenly got some huge problems. It doesn't import nearly enough food, nearly enough energy to take care of its needs. It's absolutely dependent on exports to earn the dollars that it needs for everything that it has to pay for in real money. And it is vulnerable, say, to this sort of a cut in its imports, etc. And nobody's going to want to do much business with China if it does go after Taiwan. So it'll be free to deal with North Korea and Iran and Russia. But the China that is so dependent actually on foreign markets, they will find themselves without those things. So if America plays it right, and our military is still strong, it needs to sort of get better in certain key areas, but it could cause the Chinese a lot of trouble if it does things right. But also, as I said, spread the battlefield, and suddenly China is going to find itself headed back towards an agrarian society, like it was a long, long time ago. But that said, they've got a lot of nerve, and if they smell weakness, they just might try something.
Colonel, I can't see them waiting until the possibility of Joe Biden being out of the White House before they attempt something like this. I've maintained this for a while. Am I crazy in that? I just don't see how they would ever risk even the possibility of facing a Trump White House again, or a DeSantis White House. Why would you wait until Joe's gone?
Oh, if you can get Taiwan subverted, and they've done a very good job of that actually over the last 50 years. If you can get Taiwan to feel just demoralized and tired and just like it has no chance, you could get basically a Taiwanese turncoat in office who can take a country where most people don't want to go. But what you've just stated, you could be right. One thing I do always caution when people expound on Taiwan and what's coming, everybody has their scenario, what's going to happen. And I've probably heard a dozen ones that are plausible. but so always keep that in mind, that nobody quite knows how this is going to play out. But I would say that China does have the military capability to think that they could go after Taiwan, and maybe have some prospects for success, even especially if the Americans don't join in. But whether or not China will wait, well, I say that's debatable. I think they will at least wait until January 2024. And then after that, they'll make their calculations about the U.S. domestic situation. And it all gets weighed in, or factored in. And if they see in a confused America, say there's rioting in the streets because an unauthorized candidate doesn't win the election. Suppose we haven't got our financial house in order by then. Inflation's still very serious. Suppose Ukraine is a problem, still a problem, distracting us. Well, they may think that, well, even if it's a Republican, say, in the White House, they still got some time to make their move. But it's we're at this point we're just trying to make predictions. But what you've laid out could happen. I just see it a certain way, and it's not all that different. But I do think we're headed for trouble in the near future, say within a couple of years at least.
Colonel, thank you so much. I appreciate you, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I could be so optimistic about things, but hopefully we'll get out
I'm glad you.
this.
Please, if you don't mind, tell people where they can get your book, if you don't mind. That was outstanding.
Sure. It's usually it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble as well.
Okay.
So the usual online places. It's even in bookstores. And what I've tried to do is to give my take on the question after 40 years looking at the matter from military, diplomatic, investment banking, and the high-tech industry. So think of it as somebody looks up at that spy balloon a couple months ago and says, what is going on? Well, this book kind of helps you understand what's going on.
I like it. Colonel, appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. We got light in the mood next. Somebody heckled Nancy Pelosi. Before we get to that, let's do something good, huh? Let's fix your allergies. You enjoying your allergies? Blowing your nose 9,000 times a day? Eyes itchy? Just a yellow film all over everything? Well, I can't do anything about the yellow film. It is what it is. But we could clean the air in your home. Eden Pure Thunderstorm. When I first got one of these, I got one off a recommendation from a friend. I plugged it in my bedroom, came back in my bedroom about an hour later. You could taste how clean the air is. It's amazing. It removes the odors from the air. Doesn't cover them, removes them. Fixed my allergies. I own 6 of these things now. I love them. Go get a 3-pack of Eden Pure Thunderstorm. They have them $200 off right now, 3 packs. You have to go to EdenPureDeals.com, promo code Jesse. You will smell such a difference. EdenPureDeals.com, code Jesse. We'll be back.
This has been a beautiful, beautiful life here in Wisconsin with all of you. And I wish Wisconsin the best of luck, because I think it's going to need it.
Ouch. Not the normal concession speech. That was Daniel Kelly after he got crushed in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. But we're not going to rehash all that again unless Ryan feels like it, because there's actually great news out there and great things happened that day in that state. Joining me now, somebody who's doing the work. You know, we talk about blocking and tackling on this show, local, school boards. Well, here's your guy to support. Ryan Girdusky has the 1776 Project PAC, and they're out there blocking and tackling. Ryan, what'd you guys do in Wisconsin?
So we won 24 school board races in Wisconsin in what wasn't a great night for Republican candidates, although conservatives won also 3 ballot measures that night. People don't really remember. They won a ballot measure over welfare, that able-bodied people have to work before they can get welfare, and then 2 on crime. And half of our candidates that ran for school board, we had some candidates we knew were not going to be able to win in places that are super, super far left. But we won even in Milwaukee County. We won a school board race. We won a lot in the suburban counties outside of Milwaukee. And I think it's really, really important that a lot of issues that still suburban voters look towards are issues like quality of life, crime, and education that I think Republicans really should be talking more about and championing.
Ryan, people are going to find it surprising that you have this pack out there winning school board races. Haven't you heard there's a presidential election coming up? Why do you care about school board?
Well, 26 states have school board elections this year. Our next school board election we're getting involved with is actually in Texas, which is on May 6th. And then Iowa is in June. So there is no reason why people should not be getting involved this early on when we have a presidential election a year and a half away, considering the metrics to sit there and change a lot of what we've had about education in our local communities is up this year, and in some places within just a few weeks. I think it's really important that conservatives sit there and really talk about these things that suburban voters used to vote Republican on, and really speak about it in a very nuanced way. You know, we've gotten very distracted, and rightfully we've talked about the issues of like Drag Queen Story Hour and CRT, which are major issues. I'm not undermining them. But we also have generational learning loss. We've had, because of Democrats, because of Democrat mask mandates and Democrat shutdowns, we've had generational learning loss. We have, in public schools in this country and parts of public schools in this country, we have extreme violence that needs to be addressed. I think that there is a lot of things that we need to sit there and focus on that are in a very broad and message I think a lot of suburban voters would care about.
Okay, so I'm confused, Ryan. I don't understand how the voter thinks or why things work out this way, but you do this work, so you explain it to me. You win all these races in Wisconsin, and Daniel Kelly gets his doors blown off in Wisconsin. So voters walked to the polls and they voted for the 1776 Project Conservative and then voted for the nutball communists to sit on their Supreme Court? Why?
So 80% of Wisconsin voters voted to have a workforce thing against welfare, and 67% voted against two hard crime bills to protect people, to not let criminals go without bail, and then voted for a Supreme Court judge who does support bail. People are very nuanced, and because two things really worked against us. Daniel Kelly had just run in 2020, and he lost by, guess what, the same exact percentage he lost this time. He was a very, very bad candidate. He raised no money. He raised $900,000, and the Democrat, Janet, and I can't pronounce her last name, but Janet, the Supreme Court judge elect, she raised $12 million. And the difference was we have a lot of PAC money, but PAC money doesn't go as far in purchasing ads as direct campaign donations do. So the 1776 Project, we don't do direct ad buys, we do mailers, because that is the same price no matter who pays for it. But in the direct ad space, if you do commercials and you do ads online, you get a lot more bang for your buck if you're the candidate than if you're the PAC. So we had a lot of PAC money. We had very, very little candidate money. We had a candidate who was not very good. And Janet ran on two very important issues that Democrats have really managed to sit there and corner everyone on: abortion and democracy. The idea that, Kelly is like Trump. Trump is against democracy, and she's going to protect abortion rights in Wisconsin. And I think that since the overturning of Roe, a lot of conservatives in some corners of the country who have been very, very, very aggressive on saying they're promoting the most strict abortion laws really have soured the whole entire party in other regions of the country. And Daniel Kelly was very, very conservative on abortion, and he had a lot of other talking points that were very, very strange for a candidate to talk about. He was more of a pundit than a candidate.
Okay, let's dig into the abortion thing, because this is something, as you well know, I am super, super passionate about, mega pro-life, but I want to win races without sacrificing what I believe, and I won't sacrifice what I believe, but I want to win. You're good at this stuff, the messaging stuff, to the Republicans or potential Republicans running, and maybe to me. How is that messaged, although I'm not running for office?
So people gave someone the Supreme Court gave a right to abortion for 60 years. And then all of a sudden one day that right doesn't exist anymore. It's very hard to take something away from somebody when they feel like it is a right. So that's the first thing running against us. And then when you dramatically change any law, whether it be Obamacare or Roe v. Wade, when you dramatically change something overnight, people have a natural pushback to it. It happens constantly in elections. So when states like Texas, for example, or now Florida and Georgia and Ohio have done the heartbeat bill or 6-week bans or 15-week bans, it is a dramatic change for a lot of people. And a lot of people have a natural pushback. You have a right, you don't have a right anymore. I think that what you should do, what the pro-life movement should be doing now, is in a lot of these purple states or bluish states or slightly red states, is sit there and do what they were doing pre-Roe. Sit there and start saying, okay, you cannot abort a child if it's viable in the womb. Start there. And maybe in a couple of years' time, you sit there and say, you know what, actually, we're going to go to 20 weeks. Actually, we're going to go to 15 weeks. No, we'll go to 12 weeks. You do that small chipping away. So it's like a frog boiling in water. So all of a sudden they sit there and they don't realize anything's changed, because most people in this country don't actually get abortions. When you look at the poll of, where is your local abortion clinic? Most people do not know. It is the idea of abortion that they are more, that women should have this right than the actual practice of that right. So it has to be a small incremental thing. We can't just open the doors and say, heartbeat bill nationwide, that's it, case closed. You're going to have a natural pushback.
Okay, now let's move to the second thing you brought up, democracy. Democracy being on the ballot. It's just so absurd, I can hardly say it, Ryan, without laughing, but it is something they run on, and it is something that motivates Democrats, because Democrats are insane people. How do we run against such an obscure topic that it doesn't even mean anything? How do we run against that?
I know. Trust me, I know. I think when I first heard it, I literally laughed out loud. I was like, doesn't make any sense. This is not real. But the most important thing is not Democrats, it's independents. We've lost independents in 3 straight elections because of, in large part because of the issue of democracy and the threat of quote unquote democracy. I think it's ridiculous too. And here's the long and short of it. Donald Trump is toxic to the party. Donald Trump is toxic to independent voters. They just hate him. They just do. They hate him with an utter passion, and there's no way you get around it. And look at every single solitary opinion poll, look at every single result in every single election. Suburban voters that voted Republican for close to 60, 70 years do not like him. He is the idea of what a patriarchal, person would be, in the sense that he's the father who never loved you, the boss that wouldn't give you a promotion, and the husband who cheated on you. That's what he represents to a lot of suburban women, especially. And his message is just incredibly toxic to independent voters. And it's not his message, it's him as a person. They just don't like him. And being attached to him, the ego, the brashness, the idea that there's no even a humble brag. It's just there's no humbleness at all. There's no personalization around politics with him. They don't see him as Republicans see him, and attaching him to any Republican is just toxic to independent voters. And I don't know how you alleviate that whatsoever.
Man alive. That is sobering when it comes to our 2024 chances, but that's why I love you, brother. Thank you for giving us right between the eyes. Now, as I always do when you come on, I want people to support the blocking and the tackling, not the flashy wide receiver, the fat left tackle. That's how you win games. How do they support the 1776 Project PAC?
1776 Project PAC, PAC.com. We have elections coming May 6th in Texas. Texas school boards, especially the suburban areas around Dallas and Tarrant County, they are all up. This is a major chance to reform it, especially the places that have been fighting, places like South Lake, places like Carroll that have done the reforms and that the federal government is suing. All those school board members are now up for re-election, a lot of them. We need to support them and show them that their work is not going unnoticed.
1776 Project PAC. Everybody go support it. This is the work we talk about. Forget about that presidential race. Ryan, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. We are going to discuss, as we always do, going to discuss some culture war stuff next. Before we do that, let's talk about the little things in life. Little joys. There's all kinds of things to look around and feel bad about right now. Let's take joy in the little things. Your dog greeting you when you get home. Making burgers with the kids. Cup of coffee in the morning. Or 2, if you're like me. I have a subscription to Bone Frog Coffee. I don't want to have to think about buying it again, reordering it. I have a subscription. Navy SEAL started this company. Seattle's Best Coffee, one of their founders, makes the blends. Best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. 2 cups a day, and I know I'm supporting not only a Navy SEAL, the various Navy SEAL foundations this company supports, while enjoying a great cup of coffee. The little things. Put a smile on your face. Go to bonefrogcoffee.com. Promo code Jesse gets you 10% off, all right? Subscriptions. We'll be back. All right, let's lighten the mood and make fun of Grandma Vodka. Before we do that, I want to do this. I want to help veterans. You want to help veterans. We all say that all the time, right? We want to honor these guys. But what does that mean? How do we do that? Well, there are real tangible things you can do and I can do to honor veterans. There are. More than just talk, we can do things like helping them mentally come back from combat, because it doesn't just happen magically on its own. It's not just, let's give him a couple weekends, give him some pills, he'll be fine. That's not how it works. It takes time to come back, and oftentimes time doesn't do it either. You need help. Boulder Crest is that help. It's called Operation Struggle. They are taking these veterans who are not doing well and bringing them back to their families, back into the world. It's a wonderful thing they do, and we can help them do it. We should help them do it. Go to bouldercrest.org and give what you can, okay? bouldercrest.org. All right, now, we warned the communists forever to stop screaming at our people in public, stop making an idiot of yourself, or the people are going to start doing it back to you. Grandma Vodka found out that prediction came true.
See, that's a very good place for you in the depths of hell, because for some reason you have a very bad obsession of getting us into war. You got us into a war in Iraq. You got us into an invasion of Afghanistan. Why did we destroy Nord Stream? We're leaving millions of Germans without energy. You have a knack for getting us into war. People like you should be arrested. You are a war criminal.
Hey, Congresswoman! I came to see a warmonger, but you're a sad old drunk. What happened?
Sorry. No call for that. I'll see you tomorrow.